the phrase oft repeated is "No time for love, Dr. Jones."
Yes.
And however I feel like this week, we do have time.
We always have time.
We have nothing but time.
Especially
So,
for Dr.
love with.
Jones. I should have done my eyelash or eyes but to be like in his class.
Right.
I was struggling to look for it was hard to get away from the super sexy, open shirted Indiana Jones
Right.
photos.
Well, everyone has their own cross to bear.
It was good. It
As
it was a perk of the job.
Heidi, there's a reason it's called work. You know what I'm saying? So we have a bonus episode of Untold Magnitude. And the nice thing too, Mike, as a collector of Indiana Jones, as you are loyal listeners will hear.
Yes. The formidable collector.
Foremost. Yes. That's the thing. I was thinking about this earlier today. He never has said like, "Oh, I've got the world's biggest Indiana Jones collection." Mm-mm. I don't know how you would have one bigger unless you have Harrison Ford in a box. Right? That's got to be it. That's
the only way.
Yeah. And the best part too, if while listening to this, you think, "Oh, I wish I could see what Mike's Indiana Jones collection looks like," because it's not even open to the public, I don't think.
No.
Is it?
It's his house. It's at his house.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have a full gallery on our website, which we can now promote as like a thing that we do. Right?
Yeah.
We have a website. 2, we have a gallery of Indiana Jones photos on it. Those are 2 things most websites do not have.
True. Most websites should have, but don't.
Should have, yeah. No, not. Please go to CNN or failing New York Times. Do they have a picture of Indiana Jones stuff on that? No, they do not.
Nope.
So mark one up for us.
This is Why, with your hosts, Heidi Hedquist and Luke Poling.
A priceless treasure lies within anyone's grasp. But only one man knows where it is. From the creators of Jaws and Star Wars comes a totally modern hero with a new age of adventure. Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I know. So your collection started when you got a VHS copy of Raiders. What was the second thing you got?
Well, to be honest, if I remember correctly, and when it comes to this collection, I like to think I have a pretty good memory of everything. In 1984, when I was a freshman in high school, my science teacher actually had up a Temple of Doom calendar in his classroom. And every day I came in, I said, I forget his name, but basically he was always so strong about pointing out that calendar to me. And like, I still have it. And I bugged him every day. I said, when you're done with that calendar, I want that calendar so bad. And basically it didn't even make it through half the year, and he got so sick of me asking for it. He's like, here, just take it, and I'll just leave me alone. That was actually the second unofficial item that was actually in my collection.
So does that teacher know about your collection?
Actually, years later, and now that I think of it, yes, his name was Mr. Schrader. Years later, actually, I did run into him at some grocery store somewheres, and I actually got to talking with him, and I actually said, at the time, I really didn't have a specific collection, but now that I have actually accumulated what can be called a collection, I told him, I said, that calendar is still exactly the way it was when you gave it to me. And I said, I have that sitting in a curio, and I've never forgotten all the hassle it took me to get it from you. And he was like, well, I'm glad I could give it to you. It didn't really seem to make a big deal out of it. He was like, well, okay, yeah, I'm glad that I could make you happy.
I spent my entire college senior year, I was the editor of the school newspaper, and my wall, I convinced one of the guys who worked in student services, who was a staff member, to give me the greatest poster from Raiders of just Indy up close, sweaty, shirt open on the bridge, just head and shoulders. Got me through college. I would not have given it to you. No matter how great your collection is, that baby would stay with me.
That's great. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Don't think you're stumping Mike with that one, Heidi.
I'm not trying to stump him. I'm just
Yeah.
telling him that
Okay,
I
all right. I get
understand
it.
the love.
And a lot of people that I know that actually have, like, they'll say that, oh, they've got a few Indiana Jones items and stuff. Oh, but it's nothing compared to your collection. And I just stop them and I just say, hey, it's not about the size of the collection. It's what the pieces mean to you. I mean, if you, like with you in that poster, it's like, hey, if it's got some deep meaning, it's like, it doesn't matter if it's one item or 100,000 items. Just, it's the meaning behind it all. That's all that matters.
So what was the impetus to this? I mean, because I had a Star Trek 4 on VHS, and I haven't, built the deck of the Enterprise. What was the thing that made you say, I gotta keep going on this? There's something I get out of this.
It was a combination of a lot of things. I grew up in the Star Wars era, and I remember when I saw Star Wars, that when I walked out, I mean, I was about 7, 8 years old, and from what my parents told me when I left the movie theater, I was so focused on Harrison Ford and Solo. And they said, oh, you talked about him and you talked about him for weeks afterwards. And as I grew up after that, I just started following his movies. And, well, Raiders only came out a few years later. And there was just something about his persona on the movie screen. I was just so drawn to his acting, and just, to be honest, I really couldn't explain it myself. It was just, when you have an attraction to something, you're like, I don't know why, but I do. And it just took off from there. But the Indiana Jones movies, those are the ones that kind of had more meaning for me, that I could kind of put myself into the movies and take more out after I saw the movie than it seemed like the other ones. So that's kind of where the Indiana Jones pull came from for me.
And I know, speaking for myself, and I know there's a documentary about this, the kids who tried to recreate all of Raiders shot by shot. Did you ever try to get that way into the film to sort of inhabit the Harrison Ford character, or was it just everything related to the series?
No, I never really. No, I would never insult Mr. Ford by trying to put myself into. No, it's not like I wanted to grow up and be an archaeologist or anything like that. It seemed like that from a certain young age, I seemed to take on certain characteristics that I wasn't even trying. I know when I was young, I think before I was even in high school, I think it was like 6th or 7th grade, I was one of the only kids in my class that actually could grow a beard. And I thought, well, it's like, what's the big deal about it? Oh, I got teased. My parents were always telling me, it's like, oh, you should shave that, And there was something about it where I'm like, no, it's just something that's me. It's like, if I can do it, I'm going to do it. And I didn't even really relate it to the Indiana Jones movies at first. But when all of a sudden somebody brought that to my attention, I'm like, I wasn't even paying that much attention, but it's like, wow, it's like that. It was meant to be. It was like, it was a sign from somewhere, So just certain little things like that just kind of like outside influences that always kept the movies close to me. It just seemed like there's something in life that's just telling me, hey, these movies, they're going to be part of your life, and you need to surround your life with all this memorabilia, because you're gonna have it for all your life.
I love it. Do you have a particular moment in any of the films, not which film, but a particular moment that stands out as the one you play back in your mind more than any other?
That's actually one of the more popular questions that people ask
I'm
me.
sure.
And when they ask me that, I answer, there's each one of the movies, they have what I call the moment. And people stop and they're like, the moment, what is that? And I'm like, it's a part of each movie where it's not so much action orientated, but it's a part of the movie where all there is Harrison Ford on the screen, and there's music playing, and there's no dialogue. Those are the parts of the movies that stand out the most to me, because it's whether it's a quick 2 seconds or 15 seconds, it's a part of the movie where it's like it almost stops and stands still for me, where it's the most perfect picture of Harrison Ford, and there's just the right kind of music by John Williams, of course, playing in the background, and it just stops my heart when I see those every time in the movie, and it's like, oh, this is what I've been waiting for. Those are the moments that stand out for me from the movie.
So what's the one from Raiders?
From Raiders, it's the one where just after he believes that Marion's been killed in the truck explosion, and he's sitting at the table with the monkey, and he's drinking from the glass, and it's just a very somber scene where it's just music in the background, and it's just him, and it's just his acting style, his facial expressions, whether it's his eyes, his mouth, if he's moving his arms. Those are the moments that stand out for me.
And I know exactly that shot and that scene. So you have the VHS, you've got the calendar. When did it really amp up? Because one doesn't get, this many items in a collection by accident.
Right. Doesn't start building a house for it.
Yeah.
When Last Crusade came out in '89, and this was supposed to be the end, this was supposed to be it. When I first saw it, well, opening night, of course, but when I first saw it, and the movie got over, and it's a picture-perfect ending to a movie, everybody's riding off into the sunset. Again, John Williams does a great job with the music, and I remember sitting there after, and everybody had cleared out. I was there with some friends of mine, and I just remember sitting there, and it didn't hit me till then, but it was over. The movies are over. It's done. There's a trilogy, the 3, that's it. Last Crusade, it's over. And I guess for better words of it, I kind of went into a little depression for the next couple of weeks. Like, hey, I've been growing up with this. This has been part of my life, my teenage years, and now it's over. And I had a lot to thank for the movies, but it was like, no, there's got to be more. Now I got an adult life. I need to have some more Indiana Jones movies. So after that, that's when I really started deciding to form a collection, where I'm like, I've had pieces here and there, but they never were a solid, thought-out collection. But after '89, when Last Crusade came out, that's when I seriously decided, like, I'm going to start finding pieces wherever I can, and I'm not just going to use them, wear them out, whatever. I'm actually going to start displaying them, taking care of them, and keeping, like, tape sealed, CDs, whatever, and I'm going to start a collection. That's when it really started, in the summer of '89.
I noticed you couldn't help but opening up the Lego sets. Do you have a backup closed? Do you have a closed kit somewhere?
Yes, I do. I had, and I don't know if this is going to sound strange or not, but as a young kid, I never played with Legos. Nobody had bought me Lego sets. I never had any interest in them. And when Indiana Jones, the Lego sets came out, I was like, I don't care what it is. I'm going to collect it. And I got all the sets sealed in a box, and there was a little bit of a lull in the collecting at the time. I kind of gotten everything that was out at the time, and I was just sitting around the kitchen table one day, and all of a sudden I'm looking at these, and I'm like, I wonder what it would be like to put these together. And my wife was like, you had never put together a Lego set? I'm like, I had never played with them, and she was just like, so the next day she went behind my back, went out and bought one of the small sets, and it's like, you got to put this together. I got to watch you put it. It was like a 85-piece set, so there was nothing to it. But after that, I had so much fun that, I went out and bought second sets of the sets, and I put those together, and those are displayed in my collection. And the sealed boxes, those are just tucked off to the side. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but I know they're valuable, but I'm not going to get rid of them. But yeah, I basically bought 2 sets of each, one sealed and then one put together.
Well, I think that's something that's important for people to know who maybe aren't familiar with you and your collection. Our understanding from everything we've read and getting to know you before we actually got to know you is that this collection is truly for enjoyment and for because of your love. You're not collecting to make some big windfall. Is that still the case?
I know that there's all types of collectors out there. Some will collect to a point and then they'll sell off pieces to make money to buy that next big purchase. No, it's all a tribute to Mr. Ford and the impact he's had on my life. And when I get a piece, if depending on how used it is or how new it is, it goes through a cleaning process so I can clean it best I can. Once it goes into the collection, it's part of it. I have been asked here and there to do like some trading on eBay, like, "Ooh, I saw that you have this piece. I'd love to get that piece, and would you consider?" No, I don't do any trading. When it becomes part of the collection, it's part of it. It does not. It never leaves.
That's fantastic. I love that. Do you play the pinball game?
I do not play it, but once every couple of months, I will plug it in and just let the lights run, simply because the person I bought the pinball machine from, they kind of asked me how you're going to go about having this, and I said, I'm not going to play it. It's going to be for display. Gotcha. And he said, well, to be honest, you're probably going to want to turn it on once every couple of months and just let it run for a while. He said it's actually not good for the machine if you just never turn it on. But no, I don't play it. I turn it on and I get mesmerized by the lights and everything, but
right?
No, I do not.
I love that game. I love it when your ball goes and then you just hear Marion say, "See you tomorrow, Indiana Jones." I was bad at pinball just to hear that.
I was not familiar with pinball machines at all. And when this gentleman was selling it, and he basically verified that this machine had less than 400 hours on it, play time, and I was like, is that a lot? He's like, if in the pinball world, a machine that only has 400 hours of play is nothing. He said, I just need the space, and I'm looking to get rid of it. And my collection at the time seemed to kind of impress him. And he's like, this is going to go to a good home. We worked out a good deal, and less than a week later, I had it sitting in my garage.
Love it.
And I know you've mentioned in one interview at least that you have been in a position where somebody is putting something in a dumpster and they will look at you and say, I am required to put this in the dumpster. What happens to it after that is none of my concern.
Exactly correct. I have a couple of pieces of cardboard standees.
That was my question.
Yes. Yeah.
What it was?
Yes, they're cardboard standees. Basically, when some of the store owners, when they get this, it comes with an instruction sheet about how long to leave it up, and sometimes it even says where to display it in their shop or store. And on this date, you take it down, and it is to be disposed of. And I've had a couple of dealings with shop owners that, they're very sympathetic to me. They're like, I know this isn't going to end up on eBay trying to sell it. I know you want it for your collection, but I never try and outstep my bounds. I don't want anybody getting in trouble just to get me a piece. But there's been lots of times I've been on my hands and knees, literally, like, please, is there anything I can do? And a lot of them I've run into a few of them where they're like, hey, all it says is I'm supposed to throw it away. What happens after that? As far as I'm concerned, once I drop it in the dumpster, I've held up my end of the bargain. So they're like, you want to go in and get it? Hey, I'm not going to call the police. And that's what's happened.
I know, obviously, you started after Last Crusade, so to get to the first 2 films, you had to sort of go back to try to find stuff. But with Crystal Skull, you are essentially there at the inception. As soon as something new comes out related to the film and the series, you can go out and get it. So is there stuff that you're still looking for? How often are you surprised and say, "Oh, I don't have that"?
Every time I go on eBay,
Really?
there's always something where all of a sudden, boom, oh, I had no idea that none whatsoever. I mean, with the hours that I log in on eBay, I'd kind of like to think that after so many years now, it's like I've got an idea what's out there, or I've seen that, or oh yeah, I know. But there are still days where all of a sudden somebody will have the smallest little item, and it's like, what is it? Oh, what is it? And I'd spend half an hour emailing the seller, hey, what is this? Where'd you get it from? Are you the original owner? What condition is it in? Blah, 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 blah. And that's part of the excitement for me. It's like some days I almost have Christmas here 365 days a year, depending on what I find. But no, my collection will never be complete. There's always items out there, and I believe that there's people out there that probably hang on to things and don't advertise it just because they know certain times or when other movies come out from that franchise, they'll throw it online and be like, hey, have you ever seen this? And they'll make a pretty penny on it.
How well do you know where everything is in your collection? Like if I said to you, find me something with short round, could you just know right where to get it out of the room?
Please challenge the man, Heidi.
The funny thing is, before I had this house built, I had a master bedroom at my other house, and it was full of Indiana Jones memorabilia. There are still times I will go into my room now, my new room, and I will go to a curio that I had at the other house, and I will see the pieces in that curio, how they were displayed at the other house. I've spent so many years at the other house, about 17 years at the other house with this, and I can still picture almost exactly what pieces were in what curio. But now here at the new house, I've only been here for about 4 years now, and every time I go in the room, I kind of do like a walk around and I look in each curio, make sure, like a little action figure hasn't tipped over, or, just if there's something I have to straighten up. So every time I go in, I get a new mental picture of, where the pieces are. For the most part, if I was looking for a short round piece that you were asking about, I'd say it would take me no less than 30 seconds before I'd be able to find it. There's still some areas in there where it's like, oh, where is that? Is that in this one or that one? Or that's right, I moved it. I moved it the other day to make room for something that fit more appropriate. So I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good with it, but some days I would probably need a couple of minutes just to kind of walk through and find where it is.
And then so did you buy the new house and then put the room on, or was that room already there and you just walked in and were like, this is where it's going to live?
When there was a point where I needed to make a choice if I was going to continue collecting or not, because at the old house, the things were not being displayed the way I wanted them to. It seemed like they were kind of, well, there's only room here for this, and it was a little here, a little there, and it started getting sloppy for me, for better words. And I just wasn't getting the feeling that I wanted out of these pieces, and I started, going back and forth. Well, is this a sign that I should stop collecting and whatnot? But once I got through that, and I decided, no, I'm a collector for life. This isn't going to go away. Basically, I ended up working with a local home builder, and I said, okay, my wife and we basically designed the house. But then once the house was designed, then it was like, okay, now I am going to be adding onto the house because I am going to be building a special room for this collection, and I need to get together with somebody and to discuss, the best way to build this room for climate control. And because there won't be a second story or a second floor, I need to make sure this room is going to be very sturdy and stable for like when it gets windy. And I need to work with somebody that knows what they're doing when it comes to like a special request. And I was actually lucky enough to actually work with a gentleman that actually had his hands on building my first house. So there was a nice little connection there. But no, we basically, my wife and we built the house. But then once we had all the plans down, that's when I added on to the side of the house my museum.
What would you tell someone, a kid, who has something that they're so passionate about, like you were, the first time you were exposed to these films? What advice would you give to someone who's a kid that may potentially want to be a collector like you someday?
Well, I wouldn't kind of sugarcoat it. I mean, I would tell whoever would be interested in it. It's kind of a tough life. I mean, financially, there's a budget that I have to stick to monthly, and there are times that I will give up certain things just so I can afford a larger amount of an item that I want. And what I've kind of told people in the past, and I think I mentioned it earlier, it's not, I mean, if somebody was interested in collecting, if you have something that's, real meaningful and powerful in your life and you want to surround yourself with it, that's awesome. Just don't let anybody tell you your collection's too small or too ridiculous or too out there. It's like, there is no rules to collecting. You can have 10 pieces and you could have 10,000. If it's something that means that much to you, it's like there's something about it. Hey, explore it. Just go for it. That's what I'd say.
Do you still get the same rush when you walk into the room as you did 4 years ago when you first built the new house?
There are times where Indiana Jones is my fountain of youth. I mean, when I just went to a local theater and saw Raiders of the Lost Ark a couple of weeks ago, and I tell you, it's like a time machine. I go back and I watch the movie, and it makes me feel young again. I get the same excitements and the same laughter from certain parts of the movie. It never goes away. Yeah, when I walk into that room, I still have very fond memories of the old house and what I had built there. And if it wasn't for that, I don't think I would have what I have today. But yeah, when I walk in my room now and I look around at how everything is hung and how everything fits, I just, sometimes my jaw drops and I'm like, did I really do this? And if I did, how did I do this? How did I get here? I mean, how did I, you buy a piece this week, you buy 3 pieces next week and blah, blah, blah. But all of a sudden, years later, all of a sudden you're like, oh, there's got to be like 80, 100,000 pieces in this room. It's like, wow, where did all the time go? So, no, I get, it throws me back many times when I walk in there. It's like a little gush of wind hitting me where it's like, wow, this really isn't a dream. I really made this happen. It's something that I'm very proud of.
Be sure to follow Why the Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and check out our YouTube channel for some additional great Why content. If you're so inclined, please leave us a review and let us know how we're doing.
Produced by myself and Heidi Hedquist. Our reluctant executive producers are John Sauvé and Sandy Stone. Our graphic designer is Samantha Mustonen. Our intern is Randy Jeanette. The theme song was performed by the Electrosynth-No-Magnetic Polyphonic Orchestra. This one's for Philippe. Thanks for joining us. Flash, we're coming home.
Nigel, is that you? Are you here, Nigel?